The bridesmaid, everyone ignored, caught a millionaire's attention, and he never looked away again. She was the bridesmaid no one noticed, awkward, hidden behind thick glasses and a bright yellow dress that screamed out of place. He was the billionaire every woman wanted, powerful, polished, untouchable. But when fate shoved them into a slow dance at a glittering high society wedding, something unthinkable happened. What started as pity turned into obsession. Secrets unraveled, and just when she thought she was only a momentary blip in his perfect world, he risked everything for her. Why would a millionaire fall for the ugly bridesmaid? Stay until the end. The truth will leave you speechless. Before we begin the story, leave a comment below. Tell us where you're watching from. And subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our latest stories. Enjoy the story. Nobody noticed her when she walked into the ballroom. Not the way they noticed the brides in sequined gowns or the heiresses sipping champagne like it was born in their blood. Isabella Cruz adjusted the shoulder strap of her sunshine yellow dress, thrifted, slightly faded, and felt the same invisible cloak wrap around her shoulders like it always did in rooms like these. Her best friend Naomi, the bride, had begged her to be a bridesmaid, so Isabella had said yes, not because she belonged here, but because loyalty sometimes mattered more than comfort. What she hadn't expected was to feel so entirely wrong. In a sea of sleek updos and stiletto heels, her loose curls and scuffed flats made her look like a visitor from another planet. Her braces gleamed under the ballroom lights every time she smiled. Her glasses kept slipping down her nose. And though her heart was filled with pride for Naomi, she couldn't ignore the sting of self-consciousness. She was not one of them. Not beautiful, not glamorous, not seen until he looked at her. Liam Westbrook had built an empire by 28 and become a tech billionaire by 32. But tonight, dressed in a tailored black tux with his signature scowl in place, he was simply the reluctant older brother of the groom. He hated weddings, detested small talk, loathed forced mingling. Yet here he was, sipping aged scotch alone by the bar, perfectly content to observe from a safe distance. He wasn't here for the people. He was here for his family. And even that was a stretch. Then his mother tapped him on the shoulder. "You're embarrassing the family," she hissed under her breath. "Get up, go dance with her." Liam turned, following her discreet nod, and nearly choked on his drink. There she stood, the bridesmaid in the yellow dress, nervously tugging at her neckline, eyes darting like she'd rather be anywhere else. She looked startled, out of place, honest, and utterly real. Before he could protest, his mother was already guiding him across the floor. He barely had time to set his glass down before he found himself standing in front of her. "Hi," she said, voice uncertain, like she was trying to shrink and stand tall at the same time. "I'm Isabella." "Liam," he replied. He placed his hand gently at her waist as the slow song began to play. Her hand trembled slightly when she took his. They danced. It was awkward at first. Her shoes weren't meant for waltzing, and his steps were stiff with discomfort. But then came her voice, soft but blunt. "You don't want to be here, do you?" His eyebrow rose. "Excuse me? You look like someone dragged you out of a business meeting and forced you to socialize with people you can't wait to forget." He blinked, caught off guard. People didn't speak to him like that. People didn't see him like that. "I'd rather be grading student art projects," she added with a sigh, as if that explained everything. I teach middle school art. That was when he looked at her again, really looked, past the braces, the oversized glasses, the second-hand dress. And what he saw startled him more than her honesty. He saw light, not the curated shine of privilege or the glare of ambition, a quiet, steady kind of light, unbothered by status, uninterested in his name. Isabella didn't flirt. She didn't fawn. She didn't ask about his money or his company or his last investment. She just danced with him, awkwardly, sincerely, fully present. And when the song ended, she stepped back. "Thanks for the dance. You can go back to your whiskey now." He watched her walk away, the yellow fabric of her dress swaying with each unassuming step. And just like that, the rest of the ballroom faded. He forgot the heiresses, forgot the investors, forgot every other glittering distraction, because something had shifted. One dance with a woman who didn't belong in his world had cracked something open inside him. He didn't even know her last name, but he knew this: he wasn't letting that be their last dance, and neither should you, because what happened after that dance was something no one, least of all Liam Westbrook or Isabella Cruz, could have seen coming. A story about connection in a world obsessed with appearances, about seeing the soul behind the surface, and about how sometimes the most unexpected people leave the deepest mark. Stay with us to the very end, because this isn't a fairy tale. It's something far more powerful. If this opening touched you, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more deeply moving, real-life inspired stories. And don't forget to stay until the end. You won't want to miss what becomes of Liam and Isabella. Liam Westbrook never chased people. In fact, he was usually the one being chased by investors, journalists, socialites, and anyone who thought proximity to his fortune might buy them a sliver of power. But that night, after the wedding ended and the ballroom emptied out into Miami's warm midnight air, Liam found himself doing something uncharacteristic. He looked for her. He moved through the crowd, past drunken laughter, glittering stilettos, and the press of tuxedoed backs, scanning for a flash of yellow, a pair of thick-rimmed glasses, a presence that had somehow lodged itself beneath his skin. But Isabella Cruz had vanished. By the time his driver pulled up, Liam slid into the back seat with a strange ache in his chest. It was supposed to be a forgettable evening, but all he could see was her, the way her eyes lit up when she spoke about her students, the unapologetic way she said she didn't belong in rooms like that, the quiet strength behind every awkward smile. "Home, sir?" his driver asked. Liam hesitated. "No," he said. "Drive." "To where?" "I don't know. Just drive." For the next hour, he stared out the window as the lights of the city blurred past. There was something deeply disorienting about how shaken he felt. He didn't even know her last name. No phone number. No way to reach her. Just her first name. Isabella. A teacher. A bridesmaid in yellow. It should have ended there. But the next morning, Liam sat in his penthouse office, staring at a full inbox of unread emails, none of which held his attention. His assistant knocked, delivering the stack of weekly reports, which he barely acknowledged. His mind was elsewhere, still stuck in that moment. He opened his laptop, hesitating for a full minute before typing into the search bar, "Naomi Wedding Bridesmaids." It was a stretch, and he hated how desperate it felt. But minutes later, his search pulled up a tagged Instagram photo from a guest's public account. There she was, in yellow, laughing, The caption read, Naomi and her girls. Such a beautiful day. Liam clicked on the tag. Yeah, Izzy lines. Her profile wasn't curated. There were no filters, no perfect poses, just classroom photos, colorful student murals, and the occasional selfie with smudged paint on her cheek. Her bio was simple. Middle school art teacher, paint what you feel, Miami born and raised, and her name, Isabella Cruz. That was enough. That night, under the pretense of needing a breather, Liam left the board dinner early. He drove himself to the address he found listed for the public middle school where she taught. It was empty and dark, the kind of building that held echoes of forgotten potential. Still, he stood outside for several minutes, watching the rows of classrooms and imagining her there, guiding kids through color palettes, praising their clumsy brushstrokes, making a world that often ignored them feel a little more vibrant. He didn't know why he was doing this, only that something in him had shifted. The following afternoon, a message arrived in Isabella's inbox. From a name she didn't expect, Liam Westbrook. She blinked twice, opened it. Hi. This is going to sound strange, but I haven't been able to stop thinking about our conversation. That dance. You said some things I needed to hear. Would you let me buy you coffee and return the favor? Her heart skipped. She stared at the message for a long time, half convinced it was a prank. Liam Westbrook, billionaire tech mogul, wanting to have coffee with her? She tapped her phone screen, then locked it, then unlocked it, then opened the message again. It was still there, and before she could second-guess herself out of it, she replied, If you can find your way to Cafe Rosa on 18th and Coral Way, I'll be there Saturday morning. 9 sur. Don't be late. I don't do fashionably late. She hit send and immediately regretted it. What was she thinking? She was just a teacher. Not model material. Not millionaire girlfriend material. She was still paying off student loans, still living in a tiny 2-bedroom with her best friend, still shopping secondhand. Her last relationship had ended in ghosting. The one before that in tears. Men like Liam Westbrook didn't belong in her world, but Saturday came, and so did he. He arrived 5 minutes early. No driver, no bodyguard, no designer suit. Just jeans, a navy sweater, and a coffee-stained paperback in his hand. She spotted him through the cafe window, and her breath caught. He looked human. She walked in, bracing herself. But when he looked up, his face broke into the kind of smile that wasn't rehearsed. Hi, he said. Hi, she echoed. And just like that, the real story began. The morning air was brisk, touched with the scent of roasted beans and faint ocean breeze drifting from the coast. Cafe Rosa had always been one of Isabella's favorite hideaways, small enough to be intimate, quiet enough to think. She never imagined she'd be sitting across from one of the most powerful men in Miami, watching him awkwardly cradle a mug like it might give him answers. Liam didn't speak first. He just studied her face as if trying to memorize every freckle, every curve of her expression. He looked nothing like the photos online. Those cold, calculated snapshots of a CEO walking out of meetings, flanked by assistants and security. Here, stripped of suits and boardrooms, he looked almost uncertain. You're early, Isabella said, breaking the silence. I didn't want to miss you, Liam replied, and then added, also, I wasn't sure if I'd actually have the courage to come in if I waited too long. That made her laugh, soft and surprised. I guess billionaires get nervous too? He smiled at that, sheepishly. Apparently, around people who matter, She raised an eyebrow, but didn't press further. Instead, they sat with their drinks between them, the morning sun streaming through the cafe windows. Conversation unfolded slowly, like a watercolor blooming on wet paper. Liam asked about her students, what they painted, what inspired them, and Isabella told him about Diego, who only drew dragons but made them feel alive, and Maya, who couldn't afford supplies at home but had hands that could turn paper into poetry. "They're the reason I teach," she said, "even when the budget gets slashed, even when I'm buying brushes out of my own pocket, because someone needs to tell them their voices matter." Liam's expression shifted, something tightening behind his eyes. "No one ever told me that growing up," he said after a pause. "They told me I had potential, that I was a legacy and a Westbrook, but never that I mattered for who I was." Isabella leaned back, watching him with new clarity. "And now you run a company worth billions and still don't know if it means anything," he said quietly. There was no judgment in her face, only understanding. Later, when the cafe started to fill with chatter and clinking cups, Liam asked, "Can I see where you work?" "You mean the school?" He nodded. "If it's not weird, I just want to understand more." She hesitated, then stood. "Come on, it's only a few blocks away." The walk was casual, their steps falling into rhythm as though they'd done it many times before. On the way, Isabella pointed out murals painted by former students, community centers still held together by volunteers, and a corner store run by a retired art teacher who gave out sketchbooks like candy. Her world was nothing like his, but she wasn't ashamed of it, and that's what disarmed him most. When they arrived, the school was quiet, the hallways dim with weekend emptiness. She unlocked the door to her classroom, flipping on the lights to reveal a space bursting with color. Art clung to every wall, portraits, collages, sculptures made of recycled bottle caps. It was messy. It was alive. "This is where the magic happens," Isabella said with a proud smile. Liam walked through slowly, trailing his fingers over the edges of canvases and student scribbles. He stopped in front of one particularly vivid painting, a swirling storm of reds and oranges. She said this was what her house feels like when her parents fight. Isabella explained softly from behind him. She doesn't talk much, but when she paints, the room listens. Liam swallowed hard. "It's beautiful and heartbreaking." "Art usually is," Isabella replied. She watched him then. Not the billionaire, not the suit, but the man absorbing the weight of stories told through brush and color. He turned to her, something new in his gaze. Not awe, not infatuation, something deeper. "Respect. I thought I understood success," he said. "But maybe it's not in buildings and brands. Maybe it's in rooms like this." Isabella's chest tightened. She didn't know what this was between them yet, this fragile thing forming in glances and truths. But she knew it was real, and that was enough for now. They left the school as the sun began to tilt westward, casting long golden shadows across the sidewalk. Liam held the door open for her, then paused. "Would you want to do this again?" he asked. "Visit my classroom?" "No," he smiled. "I mean, yes, but also this. Talk, walk, be in your world." Isabella looked up at him, wind teasing a strand of hair across her face. "Only if you promise not to wear a suit next time." Liam chuckled. "Deal." And just like that, a second meeting became a promise. A beginning. Something tender unfolding where neither expected it. Not in the ballroom. Not in the spotlight. But right there, in a paint-stained classroom, in a cafe where hearts were more open than wallets, the days that followed felt like a fragile string of quiet moments stitched between two very different lives. For Isabella, her days remained rooted in the familiar rhythm of the classroom: paint-splattered desks, eager young voices, and lesson plans written during late-night grading sessions. For Liam, it was still high-rises, stock reports, and boardrooms filled with calculated glances. But something had shifted. He began texting her in the mornings, asking how her students were doing, and she'd reply with funny quotes from kids or snapshots of their latest art projects. On a Thursday afternoon, he sent her a photo of a hand-drawn blueprint. "It's messy," he wrote, "but I haven't picked up a pencil for fun in years." "Blame you," she replied. "It's terrible, and I love it." That weekend, Liam invited her to dinner, but not at a five-star restaurant or a rooftop lounge. Instead, he asked if she liked tacos and suggested a local food truck by the pier. When Isabella arrived, he was already there, leaning awkwardly against a picnic table, holding two sodas, and looking like he wasn't sure what to do with his hands. He wore jeans and a slightly wrinkled t-shirt, far from his usual armor of tailored perfection. "Let me guess," she said, walking up to him. "You had to Google casual first date outfit ideas." "I'll have you know, I dress myself with no assistance," he said, handing her a soda with a grin. "But yes, I did text my assistant for backup options." They sat under string lights as waves lapped in the distance. Their conversation flowed like it always did, effortless, genuine. Liam spoke more about his childhood, growing up with a father who measured success in numbers and status, about how even his birthday parties felt like corporate networking events. Isabella told him about summers spent with her abuela in Puerto Rico, where the air smelled like fried plantains and everything was loud and loving and chaotic in the best way. They shared food, laughter, and slowly their silences grew more comfortable too. When he walked her to her car, she paused before getting in. "You know, Liam, you don't have to prove anything to me. I like you better when you're not trying." He looked at her with something unspoken in his eyes. "That's the scariest part. You see through everything. And you're still here," she said, smiling. "That's the best part." The following week, Liam sent a courier to her school, not with flowers or gifts, but a box filled with brand new sketchbooks and art supplies. The note inside simply read, "For the kids who see color where the world forgets to." Isabella stood in the classroom, stunned. Her students gathered around, squealing over the supplies. She didn't have to guess who sent them. Later that day, she called him. "They love it," she said. "I hoped they would," he replied. "I wanted to do something that mattered." "It does," she whispered. "More than you know." But even as something beautiful grew between them, so did the weight of their difference. She began to hear whispers. Other teachers wondering about the man who sometimes parked a sleek black car in front of the school. Parents asking questions, some playful, others not. Then came the news article. Millionaire mogul Liam Westbrook seen with mystery woman. Is it love or just another fling? Isabella stared at her phone screen for a long time, her stomach sinking. The photo was blurry, taken from a distance, but there was no mistaking the moment. Liam holding her hand outside the taco truck, his head tilted toward hers. She hadn't even known anyone was watching. At school the next day, a few students snuck glances at her phone on her desk. A colleague whispered, "Guess your secret's out." She forced a laugh, but inside she felt exposed, like her world, so carefully guarded, was now under a microscope. That evening, Liam called. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I should have known something like this would happen." "It's not your fault," she said quietly. "But it's not nothing either." "I can make a statement," he offered. "We can deny it, distract the press." "No," Isabella cut him off. "I won't be erased." There was a pause on the other end. "You're right," he said. "You shouldn't be." They didn't talk much after that. Not because they were angry, but because the world had barged into something that had only just begun to feel safe. And as Isabella sat alone in her apartment that night, her phone silent beside her, she found herself wondering, could two people from opposite lives build something real when the world refused to stop watching? Or was the truth of who they were always going to pull them apart? It had been nearly a week since Isabella and Liam had spoken. Neither of them had said the words break or goodbye, but the silence between them was heavy with everything that hadn't been said. Isabella buried herself in her students, grading papers, prepping new projects, pretending nothing had changed. But every time her phone buzzed, her heart fluttered with the foolish hope that it might be him. Liam, meanwhile, threw himself deeper into work. He sat through board meetings with glassy eyes, signed contracts he didn't remember reading, and barely touched the food his assistant delivered to his office. His world, once controlled and seamless, now felt like it was missing the one thing that had made it real. Her. He finally broke the silence on a Thursday night. "I miss you," the message read. Isabella stared at it, her breath catching. She wanted to respond. She wanted to call him, hear his voice. But the image of that headline still sat in her mind like a bruise. Not because it was cruel, but because it was true. To the world, she was the anomaly, the charity case, the ugly bridesmaid he danced with for a moment of novelty. She replied with a single sentence, "I need time." Liam didn't push. Instead, he started doing something else, something unexpected. Quietly, without press releases or cameras, he began showing up in her world, not as a spectacle, but as a shadow behind the scenes. The school's after-school art program, which had been close to shutting down due to funding, suddenly received a private donation under a foundation no one had heard of. New chairs and a kiln appeared in the art room. Not flashily, not with credit, just there. Isabella suspected. She knew, but she said nothing. She didn't want to give herself over to the possibility that someone like Liam could understand what giving without expecting looked like. And yet, every act whispered one message louder than words. "I see you. I believe in what you do." The school held its annual student exhibition 2 weeks later, showcasing paintings, sculptures, and mixed media projects under the theme, "What Makes Me Brave?" Parents filled the halls, music played from a cheap speaker in the corner, and the smell of lemonade and cookies filled the air. Isabella walked through the displays, offering praise to each of her students, glowing with pride. Then she reached the back corner of the room, where one of her quieter students, Ava, stood nervously beside a painting. It showed a girl wearing glasses and braces in a bright yellow dress, dancing with a man in a tuxedo. The faces were undefined, but the posture was unmistakable, awkward yet tender, the moment frozen in innocence and grace. "I called it the dance," Ava said shyly. "It's about when someone sees you when no one else does." Isabella's throat tightened. "It's beautiful, Ava. Truly." Behind her, A voice spoke gently. She captured it perfectly. She turned. Liam stood in the doorway, dressed not in his usual suit, but in jeans and a collared shirt, holding a simple bouquet of sunflowers, her favorite. His presence drew curious glances, but no one said anything. The room, for a moment, fell into a hush. Isabella didn't move. "You shouldn't be here." "I know," he said softly, "but I had to see your world again. And maybe ask for a second chance in it." "You disappeared," she said, the emotion cracking through her control. "When things got hard, you let silence answer for you." "I was scared," Liam admitted. "Not of you, of how much you mean to me, of the parts of myself I didn't want you to see." "And now?" she asked. "Now I'm standing in a school hallway next to a papier-mâché volcano and a juice-stained tablecloth. Because this matters more than board meetings or damage control." He looked around. "And you make me want to be the kind of man who belongs here." Isabella looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw something different in his eyes. Less polish, more vulnerability. He was still Liam Westbrook, the man who wore suits like armor. But for once, his defenses were down. "I'm not a charity project," she said. "I know, and I won't be your redemption arc." "You were never that," he replied. "You were the person who reminded me who I could be." There was silence, a fragile beat between two hearts holding their breath. Then from across the room, Ava's voice rang out again. "Miss Rivera," she called, "come see my second painting." Isabella looked at Liam. "This doesn't fix everything," she said. "I don't want everything fixed," he said. "I just want the chance to keep showing up." She gave a small nod, eyes shimmering, then turned to follow her student. But as she walked away, she whispered just loud enough for him to hear, "Don't be late next time." Liam smiled. Hope, delicate but growing, stirred again. The days that followed were quiet, not in the awkward, unresolved silence of before, but in the tentative kind of peace that comes when two people are finding their way back to something fragile, something worth saving. Isabella continued her work at the school, and Liam didn't rush her. He respected the rhythm of her world now, showing up not with grand gestures, but with presence. Sometimes he would simply wait outside the school, with coffee in hand, walking her to her car as the sun dipped below the Miami skyline. Other days, he would sit in the back of her classroom during open workshops, offering to hang art, fix shelves, or just listen as students explained their work. He was learning, slowly, to belong, not by changing her, but by meeting her where she was. On a warm Saturday afternoon, Isabella invited Liam to join her and her friends for a beach picnic. It was their way of unwinding after a long school year. And Liam, in rolled-up sleeves and bare feet, looked like someone who had finally left the skyscrapers behind, even if only for a day. Her friends were skeptical at first. They remembered the headlines, the whispers. But over sandwiches and laughter, they began to soften. He didn't try to impress anyone. He didn't dominate the conversation or flaunt his success. Instead, he asked questions, genuine ones, about their classrooms, their students, their dreams. "Did you really build a tech company at 24? One of them finally asked. Liam chuckled, tossing a stone into the water. "Built is generous. It was more like failing upward until something stuck." That humility caught them off guard. Later that evening, as the group gathered around a small bonfire, Isabella found herself watching him. Not with the doubt she used to carry, but with something gentler. Trust was growing again, not fully rebuilt, but no longer shattered. After the others left, she and Liam stayed behind, sitting close on a beach towel as the firelight danced across the waves. "You're not who I thought you were," she said softly. "I'm not who I thought I was either," he admitted. She looked down at the sand between her fingers. "That's the scary part, isn't it? Letting someone see you before you've figured yourself out. Or maybe," Liam said, brushing a strand of hair from her face, "that's how you figure it out." They sat in silence. The only sounds the gentle crashing of waves and the crackle of burning driftwood. "I've been thinking," he continued after a while, "about what I want to do next. Not just for the company, but for me." Isabella turned to him. "And I'm tired of building things that make money but don't mean anything. I want to build something that gives back." She raised an eyebrow. "You sound like someone I know." Liam smiled. "I had a good teacher." He reached into the bag beside him and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. "These are just sketches, ideas. But I wanted to show you first." Isabella unfolded the page carefully. Her breath caught. It was a concept design. An art and community center built in one of Miami's underserved neighborhoods. A place for students and families. Classrooms, gardens, studios, even a small stage. At the top of the page, it read, "The Haven Project." "I don't want this to be a Westbrook Foundation project," he said. "I don't want cameras or plaques with my name. I just want to make something that matters." Isabella looked up at him, heart swelling. "And you want me to?" "I want you to lead it," Liam said. "Design it, shape it, own it." She blinked, overwhelmed. "Liam, this is big." "It's us," he said quietly. "It's everything we've been talking about. Your heart, my resources, your purpose, my reach. Together." For a long time, she didn't say anything. The waves whispered their approval. The fire crackled gently. Then she folded the paper again and tucked it into her bag. "Let's do it," she said. And just like that, something new began. Not a return to what they had, but a step forward into what they could build. Together, construction on the Haven project began sooner than anyone expected. Isabella had assumed the planning would take months, maybe years. She was used to systems that moved slowly, to requests buried in paperwork and good intentions lost in bureaucracy. But Liam wasn't used to waiting when something mattered, and this mattered. Within 3 weeks, permits were filed, architects were interviewed, and she found herself sitting in a glass-walled office at Westbrook Holdings, a full design team listening to her speak. At first, she felt out of place. She wasn't a businesswoman, wasn't fluent in the language of blueprints and budgets. But Liam sat beside her in every meeting, never once taking over. He passed the mic, asked her opinion before offering his own. He had learned to lead differently, with humility, with trust. With her, they visited potential neighborhoods together, walking through cracked sidewalks and vacant lots. Liam would ask the residents what they dreamed of, not what he thought they needed. Isabella would take notes as children tugged on her sleeves, begging for a place to paint, to dance, to dream. It was during one of those visits that they stumbled across a retired library in Liberty City. Boarded up and forgotten, ivy had claimed its bricks. But inside, sunlight streamed through broken windows onto dusty wooden shelves, and a sense of history pulsed between the crumbling walls. "This is it," Isabella whispered. Liam looked around, then nodded. "Let's bring it back to life." What followed was a whirlwind. Liam's team secured the space, and Isabella was granted full creative direction. She enlisted artists from her school, community members, and even her students. Murals began appearing across the walls. One showed children climbing ladders into the sky, their hands full of stars. Another painted a tree whose roots wrapped around memories of the past. But in the middle of all the beauty, something deeper began to grow between Isabella and Liam. Something steadier than romance, something anchored in mutual purpose. Their relationship no longer revolved around adrenaline or attraction, but daily decisions, small victories, honest disagreements. They learned each other's rhythms, frustrations, and strengths. One afternoon, while painting a welcome sign with her students, Isabella found herself laughing at a terrible pun Liam had made. He sat cross-legged beside Maria, showing her how to mix colors on a palette. He looked completely at home, his hands streaked with green and gold. Isabella caught herself staring, not because she was surprised anymore by his gentleness or his willingness to kneel on a schoolroom floor, but because she realized in that moment she loved him, not just as a man, but as a partner, a builder, someone who had taken all the broken parts of his past and turned them into something that could shelter others. That night, after the kids had gone and the paint had dried, she found him in the old library's second-floor reading nook, now cleared of debris and filled with sunlight and promise. "Liam," she said quietly. He looked up from his laptop, eyes soft. "Yeah?" She walked to him slowly, heart racing. "I know I've been careful, cautious, maybe even afraid. I never blamed you for that. I know, but I need you to hear this." He set the laptop aside. "I love you," she said. His breath caught. "I love how you've changed. I love how you didn't try to fix me or save me, but chose to grow with me. I love that when the world told us we didn't belong together, we proved it wrong." Liam stood slowly, taking her hands in his. "You've seen every side of me, even the ones I wanted to hide, and you didn't turn away. Isabella, you've rebuilt me from the inside out." They stood in the quiet of their shared creation, the dust of the past settling beneath their feet, and something new blooming in its place. Not a fairy tale, something better, something real. The day the Haven officially opened to the public, the sky over Miami bloomed in gentle pastels, like it knew the city needed to breathe. The ribbon-cutting ceremony drew more people than Isabella ever imagined. Children poured into the courtyard, wide-eyed and barefoot on the newly laid turf. Parents took slow walks through the art studio, tracing the brushstrokes on their kids' displayed canvases. Elders sat beneath the shade of oak trees in the storytelling garden, recounting the past to anyone who would listen. Liam stood at the edge of it all, humbled. He wasn't giving a speech. Not today. That was Isabella's moment. She stood on a small platform in front of the library's restored facade, her yellow sundress glowing in the morning light. The very same shade, people whispered, as the one she'd worn the night of the wedding. The night everything changed. "Thank you all for being here," she began, voice clear despite the microphone crackle. "This building used to hold silence, dust, memories of a time that forgot us, but now it holds something new, belonging." She paused, scanning the crowd. Her eyes found Liam's. "This place was never meant to be mine. It was meant to be ours, built by artists, dreamers, children who need a safe place to grow into who they are meant to be." A hush settled as her words sank in. And it wouldn't have happened without people who believed in change, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. There was no applause. Not yet, only the weight of truth, held gently in the quiet. When the ribbon fell, laughter burst like sunlight. Volunteers released paper birds into the air, hand-folded by the kids over the past month. One by one, they lifted and scattered across the sky, dancing above the murals and the music. Inside, Liam followed Isabella into the heart of it, the art room. Her old classroom had been recreated here, right down to the paint-splattered aprons and mismatched stools. A few early arrivals were already sitting at tables, sketching or fiddling with clay. "I wanted this space to feel like possibility," she said. "It does," Liam replied. She picked up a tiny sculpture on the supply table, a wire butterfly with wings made of dried leaves. "Maria made this. She's brilliant," he said. "She told me she wants to become a designer," Isabella smiled. "Said she wants to build parks that feel like stories." "Sounds like someone I know," Liam said quietly. Isabella met his gaze, heart full. "You know, I used to think being visible meant being perfect, polished, seamless. And now? Now I know visibility is about being real, being present, even when it's hard." Liam reached for her hand, their fingers tangling. "That's what you gave me, a way to be seen, beyond the name, beyond the suit." They walked through the building, watching life unfold around them. A group of teens danced in the movement studio, their limbs expressive and raw. Elderly women gathered in the kitchen space, teaching recipes in Spanish and Creole. One little boy tugged on Liam's jacket and asked if he could help him build a birdhouse. Liam knelt down and said, "Only if you teach me how." That evening, as the sun began to dip behind the buildings, the haven settled into a golden hush. Families lingered in corners, reluctant to leave. Lights flickered on, warm and inviting. Liam and Isabella sat on the library steps, shoes off, ankles brushing. "It worked," she said softly. "It's just the beginning," he replied. They didn't need to say more. The weight of the journey they'd taken, the heartbreak, the doubt, the redemption, was all around them. But so was something else now. Hope, not in grand speeches or signed checks, but in chipped paint turned into murals, in tiny hands finding their first brushes, in laughter echoing down halls that once stood empty. Their love had never been about fairy tales. It was built in the quiet work of rebuilding, of showing up again and again, not for perfection, but for purpose, and that, they knew, would last. The weeks following, the haven's opening unfolded with a quiet kind of magic. It wasn't loud or attention-seeking. It was subtle, grounded, and deeply human. Isabella's days were filled with purpose, her hours spent mentoring children, organizing workshops, and helping build a new rhythm for a neighborhood that had long been overlooked. Liam, for all his wealth and boardroom polish, began carving space in his life for this new world. He didn't simply donate anymore. He participated, listened, showed up. But even in the joy of this growth, the outside world hadn't forgotten who he was. It started with a headline: "Millionaire real estate tycoon rebrands as community savior." But is it real? It stung, but Liam expected it. The media had always been ruthless. What he hadn't expected was the second wave, the whispers, the investor unease, the strategic board meetings behind closed doors. The questions weren't about his work. They were about her. Why her? Why the ugly bridesmaid from the wedding? Why the public school teacher with nothing to offer in return? One morning, Just before sunrise, Liam stood on the balcony of his penthouse, coffee in hand, staring out at Biscayne Bay. The city glittered in the early light, but he didn't feel proud. He felt exposed. The more he built something real with Isabella, the more hollow everything else began to feel. He returned to the apartment interior, where she was still sleeping, her yellow scarf draped over the chair by his desk. He reached for his phone and opened the email from his PR team. The subject line read, "Reputation Management Proposal. Urgent." It suggested stepping back from public appearances with Isabella, avoiding further media exposure, recentering his image on business and philanthropy without personal distraction. Liam closed the email and stared at the wall. That night, Isabella was working late at the Haven. A mural was in progress along the west wall, painted by the teens she mentored. They'd asked her to help finish it. As she rinsed brushes in the sink, her phone buzzed. "Liam," she answered with a smile. "Hey, you coming by?" There was a pause on the line. Not long, but just enough. "I'm not sure tonight's a good idea," he said, his voice tired. "There's a lot going on at the office." Isabella didn't press. She knew the tone. She'd heard it before, long ago, in the voices of people who started to drift. Her heart dipped, but she nodded to herself. "Okay, another time." The next few days brought more headlines, opinion pieces, talk shows. Someone had unearthed footage of their first dance at the wedding. Commentators debated her looks, her suitability, her role in his life. Isabella saw it all, but she didn't speak to Liam about it. Not right away. She waited. For honesty, for initiative, it didn't come. The space between them grew. Subtle at first. Missed calls, delayed texts, brief silences where laughter used to live. Then one evening, he showed up at the Haven. Alone, unshaven, his jacket still wrinkled from the day. He found her in the studio, helping a girl glue pieces of broken tile into a mosaic. She looked up when she saw him. "Hey," he smiled, but it was fragile. "Can we talk?" She nodded, sending the girl off with a soft pat on the shoulder. They walked out to the small courtyard, moonlight spilling across the concrete. "I need to ask you something," he began, "and I need you to answer honestly." She folded her arms, bracing. "Okay. Are you regretting all this? Us? What it's doing to you?" Isabella blinked, stunned. "What it's doing to me?" Liam stepped closer. "You're being picked apart in the media. People are questioning everything about you. Your background, your worth. And it's my fault. If walking away from me protects you, I'd understand." The silence between them tightened. Then Isabella spoke, her voice even. "Do you hear what you're saying? You're offering to protect me by disappearing, when all I've ever asked is for you to stay." Liam's expression broke. "I thought I was protecting you." "You weren't," she interrupted. "You were protecting yourself from feeling powerless, from seeing how much this matters. I just didn't want to drag you through it." "I've lived through worse," she said quietly. "What I need from you isn't distance. It's partnership. But if you can't handle being seen with someone like me, if I'm not polished enough, pedigreed enough, then just say so." Liam's voice cracked. "Don't say that. Don't ever say that." "Then show me," she whispered. "Stop hiding when things get hard." He stepped closer, his hand brushing her cheek. "I'm not afraid of you, Isabella. I'm afraid of how much I need you, and how much I hate what this world tries to make you feel." She looked up at him, tears threatening but unfallen. "Then change it," she said, "with me, not behind me." And in that moment, something shifted, not just between them, but within him. A resolve that no PR campaign could shape. A conviction that the world didn't get to decide who deserved love. He kissed her, not to silence the doubts, but to promise her he was staying. For her, for them, for everything they were building together. 6 months later, the courtyard of the Haven pulsed with life. Strings of lights swayed in the warm Los Angeles breeze. Laughter echoed through the walls as children ran between food tables, their hands sticky with lemonade and paint. Music played softly from a speaker tucked behind a row of canvases. The occasion? The first annual Art and Heart celebration, a showcase of student art, community healing, and the growing impact of the center that had been born from a single unexpected dance. Isabella stood near the entrance, wearing a simple navy dress, her hair tucked behind one ear. She moved easily among the crowd, hugging parents, complimenting artwork, checking on volunteers. But every few minutes, her eyes drifted toward the street. She was waiting. Inside, the community mural had just been completed, a collaborative piece with contributions from over 100 students and residents. It depicted a neighborhood reimagined, schools glowing with light, trees growing from concrete, homes connected by bridges of color. In one corner, a woman danced alone under a string of stars. In another, a man extended a hand, a nod to how it all began. Isabella smiled when she saw it, her chest tight with pride, and something else, a pang of uncertainty. Liam had left for New York 2 days ago to finalize a new business charter that would transform his company's investment arm into a social impact foundation. It was the first time he'd traveled without her since everything changed. He hadn't said when he'd be back. Until now. "Is this seat taken?" came a voice behind her. She turned. He stood there, in a navy shirt rolled at the sleeves, hair tousled from travel, a single yellow flower tucked into the crook of his arm. He looked tired, but only because he had run straight from the airport. "I was starting to think you'd send an email instead," she teased. Liam handed her the flower. "I wanted to see the gallery in person, and the girl who changed everything." She laughed, the sound soft. "We changed each other." They walked together through the exhibits, pausing in front of a series of self-portraits by middle schoolers. Some showed pain, others joy. All of them showed courage. "I saw your mural," Liam said. "I think I'm the one holding out the hand." "Pretty sure you were the one who needed saving," she replied gently. And they both chuckled. The evening wound down. Parents thanked Isabella for her patience. Volunteers hugged her tightly. And Liam, he simply watched her with reverence. The way she moved, how she spoke, how she saw the best in people before they ever believed in it themselves. The truth was, he didn't just love her. He needed her fire, her clarity, her refusal to shrink. As the sun dipped low and the crowd thinned, Liam reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. Isabella's eyebrows lifted. "Don't panic," he said. "It's not what you think. Not yet." Inside was a key, worn and simple. "I bought the building next door. The lease is yours for free. You said the Haven needed more space. Music classes, a library, a garden. I want to help you build it, brick by brick." Isabella took the key, her hands shaking slightly. "You didn't need to." "I didn't do it for you," Liam said. "I did it because of you." Because I believe in what this place does. I believe in what you've built here. And I believe that when people love each other, they don't just make promises, they make space. Tears brimmed in her eyes, but she blinked them back. Liam Blake, she said quietly, you are finally becoming the man you were always meant to be. He leaned in, forehead touching hers. And you are the woman I never dared dream about. In the middle of the quiet courtyard, beneath the last fading colors of the sky, they danced again. No orchestra, no spotlight, just the faint hum of the city and the steady thump of two hearts learning to beat as one. No cameras, no audience, just love. And it was enough. Isabella Cruz and Liam Westbrook's story is a reminder that sometimes the most powerful moments in life are the ones we never see coming. What began as an awkward, reluctant dance at a glamorous wedding between a wealthy, emotionally closed-off businessman and a quiet, overlooked bridesmaid quickly transformed into something no one, least of all themselves, could have predicted. Isabella wasn't the kind of woman Liam was supposed to fall for. She didn't come from money. She didn't wear designer gowns, and she certainly didn't try to impress him. But it was that very authenticity that caught Liam off guard. In a world where everyone wanted something from him, Isabella offered nothing but honesty. Her passion for teaching, her loyalty to her students, her fierce independence. These were the traits that drew him in, and ultimately cracked open a heart that had been walled off for far too long. Liam, for his part, had spent years hiding behind power, wealth, and the expectations placed on him by his family name. But Isabella didn't need his money or influence. She needed his truth. And when that truth was tested, when the painful history between their families was exposed, she chose to walk away, not out of pride, but out of principle. That moment could have been the end. But instead, it became the turning point. Rather than retreat into the comfort of privilege, Liam stepped into discomfort. He acknowledged the harm his family had caused and began the slow, unglamorous work of making amends, not just to Isabella, but to the community his family had once overlooked. He didn't do it for applause. He did it because he'd changed. Because love, when real, demands transformation. Together, they built something extraordinary. Not just a relationship, but a shared purpose. They turned pain into healing, difference into connection, and history into hope. Their journey wasn't perfect. It wasn't smooth. But it was real. And that made it beautiful. The lesson? Love isn't about perfection or compatibility on paper. It's about showing up when it's hard, when it's inconvenient, when it would be easier to run. It's about choosing honesty over image and action over empty promises. In a world that often rewards appearances, Liam and Isabella chose something braver, vulnerability. And in doing so, they found something stronger than wealth or status. They found each other. Now, we want to hear from you. Quiz time. What was the true turning point in Liam and Isabella's relationship? A. Their first dance at the wedding. B. When Liam took responsibility for his family's past and began making things right. Comment your answer below, A or B, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of Liam and Isabella's story moved you the most? Do you believe love can overcome such deep differences and wounds from the past? Let us know your thoughts in the comments and share your own experiences. We're building a community of heart-driven stories right here. And if you enjoyed this emotional journey, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss another impressive storyteller. Your support gives us the motivation to keep bringing powerful tales like this to life.